It's the circle of life. All living beings must one day die. That is why it's morally justifiable for me to take the life of an animal and eat their flesh or eat their secretions. The circle of life excuse is one that we hear a lot as vegans, and it's very similar to the food chain excuse in the sense that it refers to nature and says that our actions are preordained for us by the natural order, and by eating animal flesh and animal secretions, we're merely fulfilling our role within the animal kingdom. But the concept of the circle of life refers to two moments in our existence, our birth and our death. Anything that happens within those two periods of time is completely irrelevant and outside the jurisdiction of the circle of life. And animal agriculture has nothing to do with the circle of life. In fact, it's the circle of torture and death. What happens to these animals has nothing to do with nature. It resembles nothing that we would see in the wild and resembles nothing to do with the natural order. So when we buy animal products, whatever product they may be, we're not fulfilling some sort of natural order, because the products we're purchasing come from a system that's entirely unnatural, entirely man-made, and entirely separate from the natural world. Furthermore, if it's morally justifiable for us to take the life of a cow, a pig, a sheep, a chicken, or whatever animal it may be, using the excuse the circle of life, it must therefore be morally justifiable for us to take the life of any animal. A dog, a cat, a whale, a dolphin, it's irrelevant, because if we morally justify taking the life of one animal with the idea that all life must one day die, therefore we're justified to take that life, it's therefore morally justifiable for us to take the life of any animal using that exact same logic. This even applies to our lives as well, human lives, because like non-human animals, we will all one day die too. But that doesn't make it morally justifiable for someone to take our life just because we will one day die. The circle of life excuse means I'd also be morally justified to take the life of a dog and a cat, but none of us would consider it moral if I rescued a dog from a shelter, brought them home and cut their throat. But using that excuse and using the logic of the circle of life, it would therefore be totally acceptable for me to take the life of a dog or any animal that I so choose to take. When a human is killed by a shark, a lion, a tiger, or a crocodile, we don't excuse the animal killing the human by saying they're acting under the circle of life. If anything, we do the opposite. It makes us angry, it makes us upset. We go out and we hunt and we kill the shark, we kill the lion, we kill the tiger, we kill the crocodile. We bring about some sort of revenge. We want to see justice for the life that they took. However, if it's morally justifiable for us to needlessly kill any animal that we want to, under the guise of the circle of life, it's therefore morally justifiable for any life to be taken, including our own, using the exact same logic and the exact same excuse. And I think one of the biggest issues with the circle of life argument is that it refers to something being natural. But the animal agriculture industries are about as far removed from nature as possible. The things that we do to animals couldn't be more unnatural. We forcibly impregnate them, we selectively breed them, we farm them in these facilities where they're denied access to fresh air and sunlight, we exploit them for what was never ours to begin with, like their milk and their eggs. We put them in slaughterhouses and we cut their throats and take their life using entirely unnatural methods. The things that we do to these animals have nothing to do with the natural order. We can't possibly excuse our behavior when we butcher them and mutilate them and inflict pain and suffering and fear upon them entirely needlessly by using the excuse the circle of life. Because the circle of life doesn't provide us any moral justification to unnecessarily and needlessly take the lives of animals that wish to live. And even though all animals must one day die, that still doesn't give us dominion and permission to take life unnecessarily when we don't have to.